This shield represents blocking everything that is not in accordance with the Dharma. This is what is said in the scriptures about the treasure box. This conch shell blows away all disturbing sounds. The golden Vajra arrow is for spreading all the teachings. The bell represents the sound of spreading the Dharma. The water vase in Buddhism, what does it mean? It represents purifying everything that is not in accordance with the Dharma. This bowl is actually the Buddha's alms bowl, which symbolizes all the conditions of the Dharma. This is the Buddha's bowl. The lotus flower symbolizes a pure mind. The Vajra axe splits everything open. The trident, this is called a trident. In ancient times, it was called a trident staff. This thing needs to be explained. Originally, it was neither Persian nor Indian. It actually comes from the ancient Greek god of water, a trident of the water god. So these tridents gradually developed into some called crescent tridents and some called poisonous Vajra staffs. There are several types of Vajra staffs. The single-pronged one is called a single Vajra, and the three-pronged Vajra represents the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. There is also the five-pronged Vajra. What is the five-pronged Vajra? It's two prongs on each side and one in the middle, with the two at the back not present. Actually, they are all the same, but the five prongs represent the five skandhas, that is, the five aggregates, symbolizing the perfection of all forms. This mirror reflects everything that is not in accordance with the Buddha's teachings. It is the demon-subduing mirror. This stupa is upright. This stupa has a righteousness to it. This is the stupa that gathers all worldly treasures. It is the Dharma implement of Vaisravana, the heavenly god of wealth. The 8 treasures of Vaisravana. This stupa comes from the legend of the pagoda-bearing heavenly king in Journey to the West, but in reality, it's nothing like that. Vaisravana is actually a very ancient and great god of war. If you have the chance to listen to me talk about Vaisravana, you'll understand a bit more. It's a different matter altogether. All right, palms together, 11-faced. This is the 6 realms. This crystal ball object shines into the 3 realms. What does that mean? Shining into the 3 realms means, for example, time, now, past, future, and so on. All right, next. Holy Guanyin. The 5 Paths Lama spoke of the 5 paths and then the 6 paths because the lowest of the 6 paths is extremely difficult to transcend and is also mired in superstition. So, one must seek the essence of Holy Guanyin to guide them. This Holy Guanyin refers to the totality of Guanyin, where all dharmas return to the source and everything is as it is. This is Holy Guanyin. The most original standard of Holy Guanyin, the primordial Dharma lineage, is symbolized by willow branches and flowing water, calm and level. The willow branch represents all auspiciousness, all purity, and all dharmas. Additionally, for the Aryans, every morning upon waking, they would dip a willow branch in water. Not to swallow it, but to pour it in, rinse the mouth. After finishing, recite a scripture, and everything would go smoothly that day. Willow branches are said to cure toothaches, believe it or not. In religions, it is said that all Aryans or Greeks originated from ancient Greece. When the Greeks had a toothache, the method they used was to cut the willow branch into thin strips, dry them, and stuff them into the tooth, and then the toothache would be cured. Later, when the Germans translated the Vedas, they were clever. The first thing they did was to use it in their pharmaceutical companies, though I won't mention which one. They named it aspirin, which literally means pain-relieving willow. The leaves of the willow branch are also used as a painkiller. In addition, the willow branch symbolizes the removal of all plagues and misfortunes, which is why the willow branch is a symbol of Guanyin Bodhisattva. As for whether the willow branch originated in China, I'm not sure, but in India and many other places, there are also willow trees. The willow branch is also a symbol of Guanyin Bodhisattva. Every day or every night, when you recite scriptures aloud, it is said that. It's very spiritual, meaning your life becomes especially crystallized. Actually, I think it's a process. Lioli, colored glaze, artifacts, these originated in ancient Persia. In ancient Persia, it was a kind of ritual object. Now, when you look at some 14th century ancient Greek paintings, you'll see the goddess with a pure bottle, or in some of those many famous paintings. I can't recall which painter it was, but some paintings depict water, a pure bottle, and water pouring into a lake. The movement of the water in that lake doesn't represent emptiness, non-existence of Buddhist teachings, nor illusion. Life's unending flow, constantly turning and renewing itself, with pure water appearing repeatedly. So, the seven-tiered stabber below symbolizes the longing and attachment of sentient beings. It also represents delivering sentient beings from suffering and serves as comfort within Buddhist philosophy. That's why we eventually developed it into a pagoda, as seen by later generations. When it came to China and became a pagoda, it wasn't originally a Chinese creation, it was something introduced from elsewhere. For some reason, it ended up having such a significant influence on China. Now, behind this, there's something called a foam tu. What is foam tu? Foam tu refers to the warning or aura that every person's body has in response to external sensations. In fact, every living being has it, not just humans, but all creatures. For example, if you suddenly jump into very cold water, it hurts, right? When you come out, you feel hot, but it's cold outside, so you naturally develop an invisible resistance. Deep inside, there's a kind of energy or qi. If you pay attention, you'll notice it. As long as you dare to jump in, you'll feel it. Immortal enhances their strength. This suppresses your splitting. If you're a strong person, that energy has a slight whitish hue, a misty white. Healthy, your body normal, but jump in, that energy will disperse in a flash. Invisible, grey, unseen, it slips away unnoticed. Practice it properly. Next is wind expulsion. If your body is in good condition for wind expulsion, for example, if you go to bed early and get up early every day, live a regular life, eat properly, don't eat recklessly, avoid wild game or anything with paint, and just eat normally, and so on. And if you live a normal life, without so many collective worries or mental burdens. With enough time for complete wind expulsion, you'll have forewarning against external shocks and unconsciously resist them. Further strengthen and cultivate your daily moments of stillness, and you'll sense energy flows 2 or even 3 days in advance. That is, if this particular energy field isn't there, you'll suddenly hear a bang, something falls over today, and you'll just move to this side instead. Some claim wealth, others poverty. Today, you get rich because someone lost their lucky charm. You find that money while they lose it. This is a warning sign from the wind and energy flow. There's another benefit to wind and energy flow. Not only does it protect you from all external forces, but it can also foresee your future misfortunes if you're strong in it. That's why, when some practitioners or cultivators meditate, what they call messages from the third eye aren't really that. It's actually your original consciousness when your rational mind, your knowledge, your level of awareness relaxes its control over your brain and body, or rather, when you let go of the idea that things must be a certain way, your rational mind relaxes and your original consciousness emerges. Then, you can foresee some supremely bright things that are about to happen. Normally, because you're so tightly bound, you can't sense it. Wind and energy flow operates within your internal energy layers. But if your internal wind and energy flow is damaged, you'll end up in a mess. When the internal wind and energy flow is slippery, it means that the cellular channels inside you are difficult to navigate, like trying to row a boat inside. The only reason this happens is if your thoughts are not upright. There are two levels to having improper thoughts. One is when you're emotionally affected, like after a breakup, you can't let go, or you feel aversion. Aversion can mean you're tired of something. For example, you say, "I'm fed up with this," or there are a few ways to interpret aversion. For instance, if I'm doing something at a high level, I show my videos to people, and I gradually get upset, thinking, "These people aren't my kind, I'll just move aside and cultivate myself in isolation." That's also a kind of aversion. This kind of emotional turbulence will damage your wind and energy flow, and it will gradually decline, lower and lower. Another situation is when you lose contact with someone, or you lose money, or you take too much of something, and again you get upset. When you're upset, at first this area will weaken, and there's nothing you can do. But if you move on quickly, you can recover a bit. But if you keep deepening and deepening it, and then look again, it will keep churning and churning in that spot over and over. Your internal wind and energy will go there and cover it up. However, if your internal energy flow isn't good to begin with, the underlying problem will enter, and when it does, many cancers are formed in this way. Similarly, many cases of depression and so on also arise in this manner, because your internal wind and energy have chosen a poor path and the channels are blocked. If your Ren and Du meridians, your microcosmic orbit, are blocked at this point of pressure and aversion, then many conditions like depression, bipolar disorder, and so on all manifest in this way. Scientists say that using instruments observing star or electromagnetic waves, you can check if your internal energy and environment are balanced. Colors or patterns seen relate to this. The principle is the same. Take early measures to protect yourself. But if your mind is weak, it remains weak. It depends on your mind. External damage can happen anytime. To repair internal damage, if your mind is damaged, very hard to protect, you must protect it yourself. This is the essence of Feng Tu. After hearing this, you should take care of your own Feng Tu. Everyone needs to look after their Feng Tu. The simplest manifestation of Feng Tu appears on your face. So when you see a doctor, a Chinese medicine practitioner, they observe, listen, and ask about your condition. They look at your face, your tongue, your eyes. That's it. Understand? If you understand, let's continue. This is called the stone belt. As I've mentioned, these stone belts are the most original. I'll talk about the 6 guanyin next, as I've mentioned before. Alright, let's talk about this. Some people include it as guanyin, some don't. This is called the Peacock King, or sometimes the Peacock Guanyin. The Peacock King is associated with the Peacock King mantra. The practice of the Peacock King is very powerful, truly powerful. There is a mantra called the heart mantra of the Peacock King. It's quite common in folk practice. Usually, people recite the Peacock King Guanyin mantra, then perform the Peacock King heart mantra, and then do some gestures. There's also a specific mudra, but I won't demonstrate it for you now. This practice can dispel all kinds of so-called bodily ailments, poisons any kind of poison, dampness, heat, and so on, even heat toxins. Furthermore, the Peacock King is often depicted seated on a purple lotus. The purple lotus, well, what does the color purple represent? It symbolizes the nobility of the Dharma, or a certain dignity within Buddhism. Purple also signifies the aura of royalty. Alright, let's continue. The Peacock King Guanyin holds many different ritual implements, and the language of the peacock can dispel the poisons afflicting sentient beings. This wish-fulfilling jewel has already been mentioned, and the lotus has been discussed as well. This is called the auspicious fruit, not a stone tower. Don't mistake it for a stone tower, because the auspicious fruit originates from Persia. The lower part of these garments is called the mandala flower. The mandala flower is not the same as the Chinese mandala flower. According to legend, the most sacred lotuses are of 5 types. I can't remember all the names. There's the yellow lotus, the white lotus, the blue lotus, and, to put it more gently, the red lotus. Each of these represents a different kind of wisdom. It's said that if you get hold of an auspicious fruit and take a breath of it, you'll become prosperous. Longevity is not as good as the auspicious fruit, let me tell you. It represents, so to speak, something that can detoxify anything. Just having one and smelling it with your nose means you'll be immune to all illnesses. These kinds of patterns are the unique script of the Upata Buddha, printed in Persian style. That's roughly how it is. Let's move on to the next one. This is called Amoghasiddhi Guanyin. Amoghasiddhi Guanyin is also known as the fearless Guanyin, representing fearlessness in the face of the Dharma and the fearless propagation of Buddhism. Because Amoghasiddhi is an ancient term, the place where the ancient Bodhisattva resided was called Pottalaka or Potala, which is located at the southernmost part of the Himalayas, known as Mount Gandhamadana. This place is filled with the fragrance of white sandalwood trees. The trees, fragrant wood, gives the mountain its name, Mount Gandhamadana. According to Master Tang Xuanzang from the Great Tang's western regions, this mountain is difficult to climb. It is surrounded by the sea. One side faces the Arabian Sea, another faces India. Many people went up the mountain, but few came down, and it was rarely visited. The Wura Naochi, hot brain pool, is a hot spring area, but Xuanzang did not describe its location. He mentioned in the Great Tang records on the western regions such a place existed. He mentioned he had witnessed Guanyin Bodhisattva circling the Buddha's altar 3 times, holding an oil lamp. Check the Great Tang records on the western regions. The Great Tang records on the western regions inspired Wu Chengyen's journey to the west. He also mentioned Arya Avalokitesvara, the reappearing Guanyin, a product of the Ming and Qing dynasties. The reappearing Guanyin is also Dragon-head Guanyin, or dragon-manifesting Guanyin. Seeing a dragon is similar, as dragons are considered a product of evil within the heavenly realms. There are leaf dragons and fan dragons. Fan dragons can summon wind and rain, help sentient beings, and are aware of the coming of the moon. A hot dragon spells great disaster. When it stirs up clouds and rain, it leaves all living beings submerged in a vast sea. Only Guanyin can subdue it. In fact, Guanyin is able to subdue the dragon atop its head, and even baptize these dragons. By summoning wind and rain, a good dragon can be turned into an evil one, or an evil dragon into a good one. This is one aspect. Another aspect is that in the northeast and northwest regions of China, it is usually very cold, so at every seaside there is a Dragon King temple. In these Dragon King temples, what is usually at the back? It is Guanyin Bodhisattva who represents the ability to command these dragons. This is known as Willow Branch Guanyin, which is the standard depiction of Guanyin in the Dunhuang caves. However, I have completely changed it. All the patterns you see in my works are actually ancient Persian designs. Nowadays, many fashion brands use these. If you look at Christian Dior, almost all the English, Russian, and other major designs are derived from ancient India and ancient Persia. In fact, ancient India didn't have much culture. People just exaggerate it when they talk about it. As for the Indus Valley civilization, whether it really has a 5,000-year-old culture, I'm not sure. But for any culture to be established, it must have a written script that can be deciphered. The Indus Valley clearly doesn't have a deciphered script, whereas ancient Persia left behind a lot. The most far-reaching and powerful cultures originated from the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, that is, the civilizations that began in Mesopotamia. There, the Sumerians developed what's called cuneiform, a script that can be deciphered. These stone tablets and their writing allow us to understand the origins of the primitive gods of that era. For example, the predecessor of Guanyin Bodhisattva, how she evolved from the goddess Alanto and from an earth deity into a water deity, and how her spiritual power increased. By tracing back to this source, we can decipher what is called Africae. The full name of Africae originally comes from Aryan. What is Aryan? Aryan, as articulated in the ancient Chinese text of Zhou, represents the fundamental sound of all things in the universe. From this primordial Aryan Mithra, all primitive magic, primitive life, and primitive people originate. When every child is born, their first sound is a cry, "Oh, it is hard to come into this world." This poignant observation is from the Heart Sutra. Explaining this, we delve deeply into these ideas. Next, we examine the methods of making primitive stone tools. Each pattern often contains a gem, some gems, or other significant elements. Next, following on from that,